Hi, this is Dave Douglas. I'm the co-founder and the director of the Festival of New Trumpet Music in New York. This is our 19th season, hard to believe. And this year we have trumpeters from 15 different countries, all kinds of time zones, 23 different sets. We're also celebrating Randy Brecker. And we have partnered for this special event with some great organizations all around the country. The Louis Armstrong House Museum, welcome. Seattle Jazz Ed, Women in Jazz Organization, El Paso Jazz Girls, the Jazz St. Louis Education Group, and Font listeners, Font music listeners, Festival of New Trumpet music listeners from all over the place. Tonight is our fourth night of music, 3 artists per night, and it's just been fantastic. So we hope that you will come back at 7 p.m. New York time and watch all of the wonderful music that is being made by trumpeters of all sorts of genres and styles. So this is a very, very special masterclass with Yazz Ahmed, who has so many accolades. I'm not going to slow anything down here by reading off the incredible bio, but let's suffice to say she's made a lot of wonderful records and videos and has such a unique style of playing and approach. She made a set for us last year in the festival, and so we thought, let's partner up and get her to talk about what it is that's happening, that's making all this wonderful music possible. And she agreed to be with us. So Yazz is probably on screen. Her name is not John Mardlin. Her name is actually Yazz Ahmed, and Zoom notwithstanding. And it's 5 hours later for her there. So this is 7:30 p.m. London time. And she's agreed to play some music, talk about how she's making it and where it comes from, and a little bit about her roots between Bahrain and the UK. Also, we will be fielding questions. You may need to be on the Festival of New Trumpet Music Facebook page, from what I'm understanding, but I'm going to be fielding questions and checking it out. And so we'll have some music from Yazz and some talking and some presentation. Thank you so much, Yazz. And then we'll open it up and I'll relay some questions that are coming in on the line for Yazz. So once again, everybody, thanks for being here. And here she is, Yazz Ahmed. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you for the lovely introduction, Dave. Very kind words. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. It's also very strange talking to a camera. I can't see anyone, but hello everyone out there. So yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna talk about my music, what I do, and play a bit, show you some examples. I've got some electronics here, so I'll show you some of those as well. But first of all, I'm gonna play you a tune. So this piece is called "She Stands on the Shore." And it's a reworking of the theme of, the main theme of a suite that I wrote, inspired by traditional Bahraini music. So the music of the pearl divers, the songs that they sing when they're out to sea, looking, fishing for pearls, and the stories of kind of yearning, missing their loved ones at home. And also, a bit of jazz. Of course. So, and the character Siduri is from this ancient poem called The Epic of Gilgamesh. And in the story, she is a wise woman. And the island she lives on is, some historians like to think, is Bahrain. So that's the connection. So I like to think of her as the goddess of the Gulf. And so this is it. Oh yeah, and one more thing I should mention actually, because of the pandemic, I've had to sort of change my setup. So I've been learning how to play solo sets. So this piece features a backing track that I made with my producer Noel Langley, and all the sounds, everything you'll hear is made just from my, I think from my trumpet and my flugel, and there's some hand claps I did as well. So just, yeah, keep that in mind. So here we go. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so that's called She Stands on the Shore. So, thank you, Dave. I've got a massive Dave Douglas in the room, which is a treat, obviously. Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could hear that, but yeah, I used a lot of previously recorded trumpets in there. I mean, something I really like. I really like to use technology in my music. I think it adds extra layers, and extra colors. I mean, the acoustic trumpet sounds wonderful, as well as the flugel. But I also like to find extra colors and things that the trumpet can't do. So I just want to show you a bit and demonstrate a little bit of what I have. So here I've got a chaos pad, and I think a camera is going to switch to see this. Yes, so this is a chaos pad. It's very nice. And then you can't see it, but I've got an Eventide H9 pedal, which is gorgeous. It's got the most beautiful reverbs and effects. And then I've got a VE20 vocal processor, which is a harmonizer, and that's mainly what I use it for. But what you were just listening to, I was playing the Eventide, and I was using a kind of shimmer effect, which sounded like strings. So I'll just demonstrate you. I'll do maybe a little improvisation for you. So I'm turning the Eventide to a different setting. And so this is really beautiful. When you play this effect, it sounds like there's an orchestra following you. So I'll just play that a little bit to you now. So yeah, very heavenly. And I'm going to use a bit of the chaos pad, so a little demonstration. So, and that's still going on, and I'll just put a harmonizer on so you can hear that. So, things I like to do, I like to sample myself and improvise along. So I'm going to attempt to do a little improvisation, just demonstrating those things. So here we go. There you go. It's a little demonstration of my effects. So yeah, so my music, I write music that is inspired by my mixed heritage. So as I said earlier, my father is Bahraini, and for those who don't know where that is, it's a tiny little island in the Middle East next to very close to Saudi Arabia and Dubai. And my mum is English, she's a Londoner. I like to create music that, yeah, reflects that heritage that I'm really proud of. And my jazz influences come from my grandfather, who was a jazz trumpet player in the 1950s. He used to play with Tubby Hayes and Ronnie Scott and John Dankworth, and he was also a record producer as well. So that's where my jazz influences come from. So I thought I'd, yeah, play you a piece of music and also just talk about the Arabic scales and the rhythms that I'm interested in, and yeah, how I fuse that together. So I'm going to play you just from my laptop studio recording of a piece of mine called A Shoal of Souls. And for me, when I write music, I find it difficult to just think, oh, I'm going to write a new tune. I have to have really a story behind it, some sort of inspiration to get my imagination going. So this piece is inspired by the artwork that Sophie Bass created for Les Saboteurs. If you're not familiar, please check it out, of course. And it's inspired by Sufism. I did some research on Sufi music and the poetry and just the motion of whirling and twirling. And then also it also is dedicated to all the lives lost, crossing the Mediterranean in recent times, who've been people, very desperate people who've been, escaping, famine, poverty, war, and searching for a better life. So I'll just play a bit to you, and then I'll talk a bit more about the ideas behind it. So that's A Shoal of Souls. And thank you. Yeah, so that's actually my band playing my larger ensemble, my 7 piece. So, just to tell you a little bit about how I came to, well, what you heard. So, the whole piece is based on the root of a G root. And the scale is an Arabic scale, and it's called Hijaz Scale. And a lot of Arabic scales are related to Western scales, so they're not all of them have quarter tones or strange tuning. Some of them are quite, relatable, yeah, to Western music. So the Hijaz scale is actually harmonic minor scale, but starting on the fifth. So yeah, see if you can work that out. Yeah, so the whole melody is based on that scale. And I made patterns, and I experimented with shapes and trying to make my own harmony, because it's this strange new scale. So a lot of my writing is very experimental, so I'll just play around at home on the keyboard or whatever. And also this piece is actually very Bahraini, because it features I think 4 traditional Bahraini rhythms. And I want to play you from my score. So just this is from my Sibelius score, so it doesn't sound so amazing, but I thought I'd just play you the different rhythms. So the first one is called Dawari rhythm. So I'll just play that to you and see if you can remember the melody. It's kind of based basically on these rhythms. So I'll just play it. And then we're coming up to a new rhythm called Natari rhythm. Now this is Bessa rhythm. And then Natari rhythm again. So these rhythms are not really in 4/4, even though the piece is in 4/4. But I just thought it would be cool to try that, even though it's not, the right kind of, doesn't fit quite right, but it sounds cool. And my drummer and percussionist, I give them that kind of basic rhythm, and then they make it sound better than what I've written. So yeah, so there you go. And the tune is basically kind of based on those rhythms, as well as the Hijaz scale. So I'm going to play you another piece of music just to show that I don't just write in this kind of Arabic jazz style. I'm also inspired by other types of music. So this piece I'm going to play to you, it's called Ruby Bridges, and I'm sure most people out there know who Ruby Bridges is. I was very inspired by her story. I watched this wonderful interview that she gave, remembering the experience she had of being walked to school and being shouted at by the parents, and being spat on and all sorts of disgusting things. And in this interview, she thought that all this kind of noise was a Mardi Gras parade. So, this is the thoughts of an innocent 6-year-old. So I thought that was really beautiful. So when I came to writing this piece of music, I looked into the music of the area of Louisiana, which is where she's from. And I looked into Mardi Gras music. For me, this is music. It's I never grew up in that kind of style. So it's, I suppose, quite new to me. So I created my own interpretation of that music. So I discovered things like second line groove, and things like that. But what I like to do is I like to add my own twist to things so that it's not just inspired by, the kind of New Orleans style. It's, also inspired by my influences. So one of my influences is the great trumpeter, flugelhorn player and composer Kenny Wheeler, who sadly passed away a few years ago. I'm very inspired by his use of harmony. He uses lots of fourths, and a lot of his music uses counterpoint, which I really like as well. I think it's a really effective yet simple technique to use in music. And I also should mention it's from my third album, Polymnia, which is music inspired by courageous and determined women. So yeah, Ruby Bridges is one of those women. So I'm going to play a little bit to you and just keep that in mind. Oh yeah, also I throw in an Arabic scale. I do throw one in, and it's called Shehnaz Kurdi, yes. So I'll play a bit to you. Thank you. So that was Ruby Bridges. Also, what I like to do with my music, I'm really interested in all sorts of music. I have a very eclectic taste in music, and one type of music I'm really interested in is electronic music. And for my last two albums, I've been working with electronic artists to remix some of my tracks. And a DJ called DJ Pleed, who is from New Zealand, originally Lebanese Swiss. He remixed this track, and I think this track is very his remix, his reimagining of this piece is very elegant. He's very, he's been so clever with, I don't know if anyone knows what a remix is, but you chop up, I send them the stems, so I send them like the horn parts, the piano parts, blah blah blah, and they take those up, they chop them up in Logic or Pro Tools or Ableton, whatever music programming you're using, and just kind of changes the rhythms, changes the pitch, and adds its own thing. So I'll play it to you so you can understand a bit more. So this is the remix of Ruby Bridges. Thank you. So yeah, DJ Pleed, he remixed Ruby Bridges. So I hope that if you were listening carefully, you could hear some of the sax parts, the trombone parts, electronified into the piece of music. I think it's really smart. I really admire people who can do this kind of thing. I think it's really clever. Anyway, so that's a little bit about me and my music. I thought I'd also just let you know about my composing techniques. A lot of the time I compose by just using my trumpet. I'll sit in my practice room and I'll just improvise. I'll write down any little ideas. A lot of the ideas are terrible, which is great because I think it's important to get rid of the terrible ideas, because somewhere you'll find the good one, and even if it's like 5 notes, you can make like an 11-minute piece from 5 notes. It's just a way of, you've got to think creatively about what can you do to make these, the small pattern, work. Somebody told me when I was first composing, don't give away all your ideas at once. So really start small. If you're ever interested in composing, just start super small. So I wanted to show you this. This is a drone box. It was actually, I went to have a lesson with Ingrid Jensen, who's, you probably all know, an amazing trumpet player. She was actually the first female trumpet player I ever discovered. Growing up, there aren't really many, well, for me back then, I didn't really know of any female trumpet players, jazz trumpet players anyway. So yeah, she really inspired me, and I went to New York to have a trumpet lesson with her, and she introduced me to playing along with the drone box. So I used this to practice long notes, but also to improvise along to. So what I like to do is I'll turn it on. And then I'll improvise along to it, and I'll capture these improvisations by just recording on my phone. You don't need any complicated equipment. So I might do something like this. Quite dark, so I might try a sort of brighter scale. Yeah, so I'll try and play notes that are really strange, that maybe don't fit. So yeah, I'll just play along and yeah, find the ideas I like. So yeah, that's a bit of that. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's what I do. I think it's really important with all playing and composing. I think it's really important to sort of act like a kid, play. It's really important to just play, experiment, don't feel restricted, I think the best ideas, well, for me, come from not knowing what I'm doing, basically. I bought a Behringer bass synth, and I've absolutely no idea how it works. I just pressed a load of buttons and it did something really cool, and I made a tune out of that. So it's really good to experiment, and I really encourage you to do that. And with improvisation as well, it's really important to find your own true voice, because the essence of jazz is freedom of expression. So I think that's really important in anyone's playing. Yeah, that's me. I'd like to pass on to Dave.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yes, thank you so much. It's really incredibly illuminating. And I have millions of questions and not that much time. And I'm also getting fed some questions from the real world.
Great.
So I'll ask, I'm going to try to bundle some of them up together. So we've had like a question about your daily trumpet practice routine.
Yeah.
The warm up and how do you get it going? And do you have a consistent thing that you do every day? And then I would add to that, because you're doing so much solo performing now due to the pandemic, and so much of it with electronics, how does that affect your chops, your physical playing, and then how do you address that in your routine?
Okay, so every day I will do the Visuti routine, the Visuti warm up. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Dave.
Well, you're talking about Al Vizzuti.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of like it's doing my stretches. Like if you do yoga, it's kind of like the sun salutation. So every day, even if I'm not practicing, I will do the routine. So it starts off with buzzing, which is a really great way to open up your sound, and then does some tonguing, long notes, flow studies, finger studies. So for me, it's a really good way to wake everything up. It kind of covers all the important parts of trumpet playing, but in miniature. So yeah, that kind of keeps things going. So during the first few lockdowns when all my gigs were cancelled, I just kept doing that routine, even if I didn't feel inspired. It became, a habit. I just did it. Um, and yeah, the solo set thing, yeah, that can be. It's funny because I've really been enjoying it, but it's actually quite terrifying as well because you're on your own and it can be quite nerve wracking. But there's a really nice sense that I don't have to rely on anyone else. I don't have to think about my members in my band. I don't have to worry, oh my gosh, is my bass player in the wrong place? Oh, I've got to help them or whatever. I can just be on my own, kind of composed and just do my thing. So that's been a very interesting experience. And Also, I don't know if any other trumpet players, working trumpet players, have had this experience, but after not playing for so long, and then you do a gig suddenly, it feels very different. When you're a trumpet player or any brass player, it's a very physical instrument, and so when I'd go back on stage, I felt instantly really tired. I felt like I'd lost my strength. After doing, loads of gigs every year, touring all over the place. And then, doing one gig after like 15 months is quite a shock. So it did make me realize that, you've really got to put a lot of work into trumpet playing. But you obviously can't practice for a gig, that's kind of, it's a bit hard to do that. But I think really important, if even if you don't feel inspired, just try and do a routine every day. Sorry, it's a very long answer. There you go.
No, that's fantastic. And I would just follow up and say, I'm curious if, you demonstrated your Chaos Pad and talked about the reverb unit and the harmonizer. And I wonder if you bring those into your practice routine as well.
Yeah, I have done. I mean, when I first got my Chaos Pad, I did practice it like an instrument, like my trumpet. I go through every single setting,
Mm,
and write notes in a notebook, just trying to think about things, sounds and techniques that I like. And same with the other things that I have, the harmonizer and the eventide. So I studied them like the trumpet, basically. And I do practice occasionally, not so much these days, because I kind of know what they do now. But I
mhm.
would sort of practice improvising and using the effects pedals in all sorts of ways, just combining sounds and seeing what works and what doesn't. So yeah, I did a lot of practice before with my electronics, but not so much these days unless I've got a performance coming up, and then I kind of refresh my mind.
Can you mention the exact models and makers of
Yeah,
the,
sure.
some
So
people may have missed it. It went by quickly,
yeah,
and I
okay.
might be one of them.
So we have the Chaos Pad, which is by Korg.
Hmm.
It's a very kind of old effects unit. I'm not sure if they still make them. I got mine from eBay.
Okay.
I try and get most things secondhand because I'm cheap. Um, and then the Eventide pedal. It's called Eventide H9, and it's the H9 Max. That's what I have. It's got 99 presets.
Great.
And the other one, the VE20 vocal processor, is by Boss. And again, I got that from the internet, secondhand. So, you know, you don't have to spend a fortune if you want to try out electronics, because a lot of people are selling them secondhand and they work
Yeah,
fine. So, yeah.
that's great. You mentioned your grandfather in passing,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to ask, what was your grandfather's name and what
Yeah.
was the music that he played? If there was any Bahraini influence, or was this on your mother's side, this
Yeah.
grandfather?
So this was on my mother's side.
Mhm.
So my mum's dad. His name was Terry Brown. Yeah, so the music, he was very, so it was London, you know, in the 50s. So very much inspired by bebop, and also music from the Caribbean. You know, London is very multicultural, and there are a lot of people from Caribbean heritage. So a
Mhm.
lot of that kind of music got mixed up, and, you know, fused with the music he played as well.
Yeah.
Um, and then he became a record producer. He left the trumpet, and he produced all sorts of music from very contemporary British jazz. So I don't know if you know Harry Beckett,
Mm.
Graham Collier, those people. But then he also produced folk music and rock and pop. But yeah, so he did a lot in his music career.
Wow, that's fantastic. So related to all those styles, and you talked about your music being influenced by so many different styles, and it seems like maybe there is a connection there. Uh, and I guess the question I would have, since so much of your music um, does reference the Bahraini heritage and the, let's say, the musical elements coming out of music you'd find in that part of the world, I wonder, in your musical development over all the years, did it take you a long time to connect with that
Mm.
lineage, with that tradition, or was that something that was always naturally a part of what you did?
No, it wasn't naturally a part of what I did. I moved to London when I was 9, and I kind of left that part of my heritage. You know, I didn't. I tried to fit in basically at school, so I would say I was British, and I didn't connect with my Bahraini roots. So yeah, and it wasn't until, you know, when you get older, you start to become aware of your identity. So that's really when I sort of I started to get back into Arabic music and, you know, traditional Bahraini music, and I recalled you know, my childhood memories of, you know, of the music surrounding me when I was living on the island. Yeah, I kind of took it for granted, all this amazing music that was so complex, and yet simple at the same time. And you know, it was really really healing for me to come back to that music, and, you know, and to also embrace it with yeah, the British jazz that my grandfather played to me when I was young. Yeah, so it's been a very personal journey for me.
Did you, I find that really, really interesting, just because the Arabic sound in your music mixes so naturally with all the other styles of things that you do. It just never seems like a forced
Mm,
marriage, if you will.
that's
Um,
right. Yeah, yeah.
Everything seems to blend pretty organically, and I think that that is something that makes it unique. Now, um, you briefly mentioned this in your talk, you know, that well, let's, what you said was when you first came on the scene, Ingrid Jensen was the only female trumpet player that you'd ever heard of or met, and um, things have changed so much for the better in that regard. uh, and I mean, in the Festival of New Trumpet Music this year, the performers are half women. And we're very proud of that, but it also feels like maybe overdue and something that should have been happening long before. So I guess the question for you, and knowing that there are these organizations for young musicians around the country, what would be your advice for young musicians encountering any sort of barrier based on who they are?
Yeah.
Trumpet Festival has really worked to overcome any sort of stereotype of what a trumpet player has to look like or sound like or be, and to bring everybody in. And so as someone who faced that, entered the field as a distinct minority in multiple ways, what would be your advice to young artists encountering that experience?
Yeah, so my advice is be true to yourself. Don't compare yourself to others. I did that a lot when I was younger. I would try and be like the boys so that I could be accepted, because nobody accepted me. And it took me a while to realize that that doesn't work anyway. So I just kind of quietly did my own thing, and and that's when people kind of recognized that I had a unique voice. But I think talk to people if you're feeling insecure. I think it's really important to talk to other female players, so you have like a bond, a support group. It's really important to have people who can encourage you and support you, and and also speak to guys as well, because I think a lot of male musicians don't know what's going on in our heads. you know I'm speaking from my own experience, but I think a lot of other female musicians have felt very intimidated in the past, especially while growing up. We have this, girls are meant to be good, quiet, not cause any trouble. Whereas, sorry, this is quite stereotypical, but I think a lot of people can maybe relate to this. But boys, not everyone, but a lot of boys are encouraged to be naughty. You'll get T-shirts that says like "Mummy's Little Monster" or something like that. You're sort of encouraged to take risks, and jazz is all about taking risks. And as a young girl, I was scared of being ridiculed. So I didn't want to make any mistakes. So I wouldn't improvise, or I'd be scared of improvising. I'd shy away, and so it took me a while to kind of get over that, and just be brave. And I think it's great what Font is doing. More festivals should be 50-50 male female, and also representing minorities. It's so important because visibility is so important. For me, it was a real struggle, imagining that I could be a professional trumpet player, because I didn't see anyone like me. All I saw was men, and I just thought, as a young girl, I just thought, oh, maybe women don't become professional musicians. Maybe they're not talented enough. Maybe they're not intelligent enough. And same with composers. When I was at school, I never saw. We never learned about any female composers. I remember this poster that just had the great classical composers who were all men. And so again, that made me doubt myself.
All white
And
men.
yeah, exactly. So it's very discouraging from the start, for young female musicians and composers. So I mean, things are changing, and it's really wonderful to see so many young female players out there. And I think we all have to support one another and be aware. It's really important to be aware, and for lots of festivals to just take the risk and, book female players, because there's loads of amazing female players out there, but they just don't get the opportunities that they deserve. So yeah.
Well, you yourself are proof of that, and you're an example to so many people. In presenting the music the way you do, and really encountering it that way. That's a fantastic message. We have a question that I don't know if I would have asked, but now I'm really curious. I want to hear the answer. And that is, can you name one trumpet player who inspires you that we may never have heard of?
Yeah, I love the music of John Hassel. He sadly, yeah, passed away a few weeks ago. He's a trumpet player who sort of the first trumpet player who used electronics in a sort of in a very different way. He built these wonderful kind of sound worlds that were very sort of, I think, alien to a lot of people who know the trumpet or listen to music, trumpet music, you know. I love his album, The Moon Came Dropping Its Clothes on the Street. That is just a gorgeous album. It's just such elegant and sophisticated, you know, beautiful trumpet playing. He doesn't play all the time, but when he plays, it's just it's very gorgeous and heartfelt. So yeah, check out John Hassel.
Wow, that's a great call. He's also so unique in the world of electronics and including those otherworldly sounds. And sometimes you'll hear noises on his records where you're not sure if it is the trumpet, but
Yeah,
that
exactly.
kind of has to be. And that leads me to ask you if you demonstrated some of the remixes that you've collaborated on, and I think that this is so wonderful. And whoever made, what was the name of the DJ who made the one you played for us?
His name is DJ Plead.
Very excellent. And it made me wonder, do you ever collaborate with the remixers in the sense of then going back and overdubbing new trumpet parts over the remixes?
Yeah, I mean, so what I normally do is they'll send me like a draft and I will comment and say, oh, can you, maybe we could try this, maybe we can try that. So that we collaborate in that way. Um, but usually I don't add anything extra. But I have done that recently. I made a recording of a remix of my tune "One Girl Among Many," and the remixer is called she's called Asmara. I think she's based in LA. And I did a little improvisation over it and using fragments of the original melody because it's actually very different to the original composition, which is really cool. Yeah, so that's the only time I've done that added to a remix.
I can't wait to hear that. I'm not aware of that, so I will check that out for sure. We kind of have to wrap up here, but I just wonder, since this is a US based festival, I mean, our headquarters in New York, but it's feeling less and less like a New York festival with artists from all around the world, Australia and South Africa and London, of course, and California, which is almost equidistant for us. You know, it's the same country nominally. But are you coming to the States anytime soon? I know that the pandemic has, you know, put a hurting on gigs for all of us. But do you have any plans to be over here at any point?
Yeah, it's really upsetting because I was going to be touring the US and Canada in June 2020. So obviously that had to be cancelled. So we're working on trying to get those gigs back. So nothing concrete, but hopefully next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah.
And where can people follow you so that they know
Mm.
how to find you and that they're aware of when you do come and they can come hear you?
Okay, so if you go to my website, yazzahmed.com, there are all the links to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. All of those links are there, so it's probably a good place to go first. And I usually advertise my gigs as well, so you can keep up to date in that way as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you feel you would like to say that we haven't covered that you feel is important for you?
Well, I'd like to thank John, who's been doing the sound and the camera work here in the studio. But yeah, I'm really grateful to you and Font for having me. It's really lovely to have this opportunity to share my music and talk to you guys about what I do. And I hope that viewers find it inspiring and maybe can find their own true voices and create new and exciting music. So and I wish everyone good luck as well.
Thank you. And you mentioned your producer Noel, who a bird is telling me that he's not far from the screen. Would you like to just briefly at least introduce him? And he can just like wave. I know he won't have his own microphone, but is he still in the house?
Is Noel there? No. Well, he's coming. Okay, so Noel Langley, he is my partner and my producer. He is an excellent trumpet player as well. And just come and say hello. This is Noel.
Oop. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Noel.
Hey, Dave. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, it was just a show and tell. It was just a show and tell.
Yeah. So,
that's wonderful.
That's Noel.
Okay, great. Well, Yazz, thank you so much. It's been really illuminating. Thank you to all the organizations that joined us. Sorry, bit of a mess here. The Louis Armstrong House Museum, Seattle Jazz Ed, Women in Jazz Organization, El Paso Jazz Girls, and Jazz St. Louis Education Group. Just great to hear all these wise words and wonderful music going all across the country and around the world. So, as every night for the last few nights, 7 p.m. New York time, there are 3 more wonderful sets coming. Sheila's set is tonight, isn't it? Do you know her?
Oh, yeah, I do know Sheila. Yeah, she's wonderful.
Tell me a little bit what we should expect from Sheila Maurice Gray, also from the UK.
Yeah, so she's influenced by lots of different types of music, very strongly influenced by jazz, but also music from the Caribbean as well, and parts of Africa. I can't be too specific, I'm not sure, but I'm sure you'll have a really lovely time listening to her. She's a wonderful trumpet player, very young, and it's been wonderful watching her grow as well, because I've known her since she was quite a little girl and a student, and it's great to see her doing so well.
Oh, that's great. So this evening it's Lina Alemano from Canada and Sheila Maurice Gray from the UK, and then from Switzerland, Lucas Fry, who has been behind the scenes at Font Music for many years, and this year is also presenting a set of his music. And we'll be going until September 15th, on which night there's a very special celebration of Randy Brecker. So I hope you can all join us. And once again, thank you, Yazz Ahmed. So great that this worked out, time zones and everything. So thank you so much and take care. And we'll hope to see you stateside sometime soon.
Thank you. Yeah.